What's the Indian military doing at this point with these wars happening in those parts of the world? Are we gearing up?
Yeah, I think Ranveer, we've had tremendous progress over the last decade, thanks to this regime. Where I think finally we're starting to see efficiency in our both efficiency and some sort of direction in the way we think about defense procurement. Give you a few examples. We're very closely tied into the Indian startup ecosystem now, which I think is a great thing. Indian entrepreneurs are getting incredible opportunities to build at scale defense businesses in India for the Indian armed forces. And I think that's going to end up holding us in good stead over the next couple of decades, because India has probably the world's largest store of technical talent. And that talent, the moment it ends up being correctly mobilized, scaled, and organized towards these national objectives, I think the outcome is going to be incredible. At the same time, I think that India needs to think much more radically. Our armed forces, our government need to think much more radically than we even currently are in terms of what we choose to spend defense dollars on over the next decade. Um, you know, do we need more aircraft carriers? Do we need more submarines? Do we need another 150 manned aircraft? Oh, do we need an enormous drone fleet? Do we need unmanned submersibles instead of large nuclear powered submarines, right? I mean, the whole conversation around a large number of small platforms rather than a small number of large platforms. These are going to be important decisions that the Indian Armed Forces need to make over the next decade in terms of how they choose to design their force structure. The main thing I would hope that we're doing is institutionalizing the knowledge and the lessons that we're effectively getting to observe at no cost to ourselves from the conflict in Ukraine, from the conflicts in the Middle East, right? I mean, if we don't stay alive to this is the way war is now being fought, then we'll end up being inadequately prepared for when we actually have to go to war in this modern era.
I think engineers and scientists have always been a part of war in some capacity.
Absolutely.
But considering what we spoke about today and how we spoke about war becoming more of a chess game rather than a football match.
It's the nerds going to war now, right?
Yeah.
It's no longer the jocks, right? Because how often are you going to be like, I need a special forces team to go in there and like kick some ass, right? Sorry to use casual language, but like the warrior ethos in society is starting to become less and less.
About the body and much more about the mind.
Or one could argue that the original warrior ethos is simply disappearing, right? Because how often do men need to go and pump their chests and get into a fist fight, even in like day to day life, right? It's come down so much through the modernity that we live in. And now, so therefore we kind of used, had isolated all of our warriors into the armed forces, right? You're in Kashmir and you go do this with the terrorists. So the warrior ethos still existed, at least in the armed forces. But now more and more, American troops are technicians rather than warriors, right? I mean, even a special forces guy has to be able to use his handheld and connect with a JTAC operator and understand how a drone's going to function and how to provide grid coordinates and how to use some complex laser designator. There's such an enormous amount of technical equipment that a soldier uses now, as opposed to a man and his rifle in the jungle, right? Which used to be the old kind of warrior ethos, romanticized picture that we had. So, yeah, I think you'll see more and more um, engineers and scientists and technicians and, a funny one. And I think, I'm sure some of your audience will be video gamers. I'm a huge video gamer myself. Did you know, Ranveer, in Ukraine, who are the most effective drone operators for the Ukrainian armed forces?
Same guys who play Call of Duty.
They're best video gamers.
Same skill set.
And by the way, this isn't a hypothetical. There's full on media reports about gamers sitting in little bunkers, taking out drone mission after drone mission after drone mission, taking out actual targets.
You've heard of the Indian gamers Scout and Mortal?
No, I haven't. What game do they play?
PUBG.
Oh, of course.
I think it's called BGMI. But this has been a hypothetical conversation I've had with Scout at least. And it's actually become a reality in that part of the world.
It absolutely is.
The one thing I understand about gaming is that there is hand-eye coordination at play, there is strategy at play, and there is creativity at play when you're playing those kind of games.
And the only thing that's missing is the experience of risk, of personal danger, of personal violence. See, remember the experience, and you said that you've had a lot of veterans on the show. I'm sure you've asked them what it feels like to not just be in combat, but also specifically to take a life. And what it feels like to take a life at close proximity. I mean, if I have to take a sword and cut someone, or if I have to be 100 foot away from someone and shoot them, versus if I am 100 kilometers away and intermediated by a screen and looking at only, some targeting information, the psychological impact keeps changing.
Those Ukrainian gamers, what are they specifically controlling?
Loitering munitions. Lancet drones, for example, which are Western provided direct strike drones. So in fact, the most commonly used phrase now is an FPV drone, which means first person view drone. So imagine a drone, it's got a camera, and the camera doesn't move. The drone moves, and so you're always getting the front face of the drone as the view that you get to see as the controller. And you're basically driving the drone flying it into an enemy target accurately.
Drone pilots and gamers. That's the new skill set, amongst many others.
Hey, if you enjoyed this clip from the Ranveer Show, we've uploaded a ton of other clips related to a ton of other topics. So explore the channel because there's something for everyone.